Viewers, Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. Good day to all our viewers across the globe and welcome to this very attention grabbing episode of Global Arena on my YouTube channel, Global Arena TV, recorded on Wednesday, the 11th of October 2023. I'm your host, Umar Isa Dandago. Saturday, the 7th of October 2023, will forever remain entrenched and stuck in the minds of every single Israeli and their families and their allies, with many people calling it the quote unquote Israeli 9/11. Well, what happened was that an army of Hamas militants infiltrated Israel and carried out what analysts described as an utterly unprecedented attack. Nobody saw it coming, including, as some believe, the world's biggest intelligence agency called Mossad. So far, the number of Israelis killed by Hamas is around 1,000, over 1,000, as of Wednesday, 11th of October, this morning, as of this morning. I'm sure as we're recording this around 3:28 Nigerian time and London time, which is around 6 or 7 in Israel. As we're recording this, the figures might have skyrocketed. The Saturday attacks, definitely, by the way, have raised a lot of questions and doubts about the vulnerability of the Israeli government and its security and intelligence apparatus. On the other hand, in response, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said, and I quote, Israel is at war. And since Saturday, it has carried out a wave of retaliatory attacks in Gaza against what they call Hamas targets. Even though there have been reports of civilian casualties, Israel is said to have killed about or more than 1,000 people as of today, Wednesday. A report by an American media called CBS News indicated, and I quote, at least 900 people, including at least 140 children, have been killed in Gaza Strip by Israel's retaliatory airstrikes, according to the Gaza Health Ministry, and at least 4,500 people have been wounded. The report was released earlier in the morning of Wednesday, the 11th. Well, the situation continues to be tensely complex and complicated on both sides as the death tolls soars every single minute. Both the Israelis and the Palestinians are bearing the brunt of the war. Civilians on both sides have been killed, and there are those kidnapped by Hamas, and they have threatened to kill them if Israel continues attacking them. Well, finally, for us journalists, this is one of the most complex and difficult and sensitive issues to cover. So for a better understanding of what is currently going on both sides, I have decided to get a balanced panel of experts that will look at it from different angles and prisms. From Tel Aviv, I've got Dr. KHINVRAJ Jengid. He is an associate professor and director, Center for Israel Studies, Jindal School of International Affairs, OP Jindal Global University, Sonipat, India. He's also a visiting faculty at Ben Gurion University of the Negev, Israel. And he joins me right now from Tel Aviv in Israel. Thank you very much indeed, Professor, for joining the discussion.
Thank you, Omar.
Yeah, thank you very much. You have been writing and giving interviews to different media organizations, of course, analyzing the situation, giving first-hand information of what is currently going on. Once again, I thank you for coming on the show. And from Malaysia, I'm joined by a Palestinian, who has been tirelessly following the situation from Malaysia and whose family members have been affected directly by this latest wave of violence. Muath Omar is a senior research fellow, at the Asia Middle East Center for Research and Dialogue, AMIC. Thank you very much indeed, Muath, for being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Your family members have been affected by this. We're sorry to hear that. And from Scotland, in the UK, I have got Dr. Yvonne Ridley. She's a British journalist, author of the book In the Hands of the Taliban. She's also a war correspondent and a Middle East affairs analyst. who is stuffed to gills with lots of ideas about Middle East politics and its complexities. She's going to join us very soon. Thank you very much, gentlemen and lady. I think I'm going to start with you, Dr. KHINVRAJ. Please briefly tell us what happened last Saturday and where were you? Were you caught up in the crossfire?
Thank you, Omar. Saturday, so I work at the university called Ben Gurion, which is actually in the south, in the city of Beersheba. Thankfully, on Saturday, because it was a week-long holiday, I was in Tel Aviv. But on Sunday, I was supposed to be there in an international conference. So I almost escaped what happened in the south by a day.
So you might have been caught up by the crossfire.
Yes, I was supposed to be there, and unfortunately, the keynote speaker of the conference was in Beersheba, and he lost his daughter and her husband in their own house.
So they were affected directly by this?
Yes, some of the people who were supposed to be in the conference. I know the keynote speaker, he has been to India. He taught at Jindal University as a visiting scholar once. He's all over in the news. He's also an American, Professor Ilan Tron. I think what happened is very unfortunate. For long, there was this negligence of the conflict. And for long, there were provocations on both sides. But I think for the first time, I could really see the intensity of the violence from close distance. Yeah. So I think what happened in the south of Israel is something that will really harm the interest of the Palestinian cause internationally. It's almost like Shabra and Shatila of the Israeli people. Here, killed grabbing attention event for the Palestinian cause. For long, that sort of a thing didn't happen. The way the civilians have been killed, and I don't need to tell you that 10 people of Nepal who work in the agricultural land were killed, 12 workers of Thailand were killed. There are some more than 10, 20 people of Thailand and Nepal who are also abducted, and they are now in the Gaza. One student of Cambodia got just mad violence with the collapse of the complete defense and the Israeli army. Nobody knew what was happening.
So it directly affected some Indians and other people from Asia.
Yes. Actually, today's report is that 12 Nepalese workers have died. 12 Thailand workers have died. Okay. And they were all in the agricultural land of kibbutz.
Okay.
So I think this violence will really help anybody.
Let me ask Muath, Omar. Muath, this latest escalation is said to have been caused by Hamas. The Hamas militants crossed the border and began shooting at people. Reports have indicated that among those killed, there were children, innocent civilians, men and women. Some could say it is not the Israeli civilians that normally attack the Palestinians. It is the Israeli soldiers and the security agents that normally attack the Palestinians. Why did Hamas decide to kill quote unquote innocent civilian in this way?
Okay. If you want to understand the whole picture of what's happening today, you cannot just address Saturday events by excluding it from the whole picture. The happenings of Saturday on the 7th of October was a normal reaction from the Palestinian resistance and the freedom fighter to retaliate 75 years of oppression of their people. The Palestinian people have been under the Israeli occupation now for more than 75 years. Gaza Strip, where the freedom fighter moved to enter the occupied lands, Gaza Strip is still under a siege, a blockade imposed by Israel for more than 16 years now. So if you want to look at this operation or these incidents, you have to look to put them in a bigger picture. You cannot just look at what happened and neglect the fact that Israel has been killing the civilians, has been bombing residential homes. Israel has the most advanced technology in the Middle East,
you have
or
just said,
maybe even in the world.
you have just said that
Huh?
Israel bombards residential areas, but the problem is that the Hamas militants, operatives, are accused of hiding inside civilian, densely populated civilian areas and using the civilians as their human shields. Isn't this wrong?
This is the typical Israeli excuse for killing the Palestinian people. We've been hearing this for the last 75 years. Israel, every time escaping from the resolution of UN and being called or held responsible for its war crime wars by giving these lame excuses.
Okay.
Like Israel has the most advanced technology, military technology in the Middle East or even in the world. They know for sure that the buildings they are bombing, and some of their commands said they are not saying we want to kill the Hamas. They are saying nowadays we want to wipe Gaza from the earth.
Okay.
So I cannot accept like they are bombing a school because of the excuse of having a freedom fighter or a resistance operation.
Okay.
They know well that the resistance sides, they know well where to target if they are targeting military, but targeting a house, and after the targeting that house or the residential apartment, you will find the casualties. You will tell by the casualties. They are all civilians. They are all innocents. So what is the motive?
You guys are said to be very good at
all of them.
Yes, you guys are said to be very good at using emotional appeal to make your own case, and we're going to talk more later about the casualties and the number of people that have been affected, including your family members. I'm going to ask Dr. Yvonne Ridley to give us a journalistic point of view about this issue, but just yes or no, a yes or no answer. Muath, do you support the Hamas militants? Yes or no? Do you support what they are doing?
This is a wrong question to start with. It's not about Hamas. I'm telling you, it's not about Hamas. It's not a yes or no question. It's like saying for someone, do you love freedom or do you want to be killed? So it's not a matter of yes or no question. I'm not here defending Hamas, or I'm here as a Palestinian. I'm here as a researcher. So reporting the truth from the ground. My family is in Gaza nowadays. At this moment I'm talking, they are being bombed and airstrikes everywhere. So it's not a matter of defending Hamas, or this is not as the Western media try to frame it as a war between Hamas and Israel. This is a Palestinian people.
Yes, of course, we're going
under the occupation.
Yeah, and we're going to criticize the West for their own double standards. Of course, I'm sure Yvonne will do that, of course, and the double standard they are trying to play. Just one more thing, Dr. Yvonne, you should.
Well, the brother was right. It was the wrong question to ask. And quite frankly, my opinion of Hamas will make no difference at all to anyone. What we should be asking is, does the world want peace? Obviously, the answer should be yes. So in that case, why has the world turned its back on Gaza? And now, when the inevitable has happened, the boiling pot has erupted, is everyone surprised?
Yeah,
You
okay.
know,
So you're
I am
simply saying,
a peace activist, and I deplore violence of any kind used on any innocents in any situation. And this desire to target Hamas, it's like, you know, will you condemn them? It's a silly question to ask.
in the first part of the interview, we started talking about it from the beginning with Dr. KHINVRAJ Jangid. Unfortunately, he will not be able to be with us for the second part, but maybe we will try our best to get him some other time. Welcome back, Muath, Omar, and Yvonne Ridley. Before we got disconnected, earlier we were talking about the international media's coverage of the situation, and let me ask you this question, Dr. Yvonne. The thing we're talking about is that there has been a kind of conflicting narrative getting out of the international or Western media organizations. One thing that has been very, very much serious in the UK is the fact that the BBC does not call Hamas as terrorists. The BBC calls them militants. Al Jazeera in Doha calls them Hamas fighters. But then the CNN, most of the American media organizations, and some British media organizations, including Talk TV of Rupert Murdoch, call them terrorists. And one person speaking on Talk TV on Monday blasted the BBC for not calling, or as he says, for refusing to call Hamas terrorists. I mean, how do you assess the kind of the level of coverage that this issue has gotten from the Western media? And has it been one-sided or fair, for example, at least, and balanced? Dr. Yvonne.
Well, you know, we're both journalists. Words are the tools of our trades. And the word terrorism or terrorist is meaningless. Nelson Mandela was called a terrorist by Margaret Thatcher. And yet when he died, world leaders raced to be in the front lines of the mourners because he was loved and adored as a great statesman. And so the word terrorism is pretty meaningless. And, you know, to some of us, Hamas might seem like terrorists, but to others, they might seem like freedom fighters. And so is it really that important? The BBC, bless them, will never be impartial. They just can't do it.
They said they're trying to be.
Well, they're trying, but their coverage of this war with Israel is quite different to their coverage with the war in Ukraine. I can tell you now, if Ukrainian fighters dropped into Russian lands with barely adequate weapons and had flown in on these little winged craft, hang gliders, they would be hailed as heroes and freedom fighters, and we would be shown the images again and again and again. This has upset the Israeli agenda, which likes to lead the media narrative. And there's been an emergence of a lot of false stories, like the 40 babies beheaded. That is a fake story. The journalist who was responsible for pumping out such hateful news has now admitted that she didn't see any dead babies. So it's annoying for people like you and I who take our professional work very seriously that people are being paid to pump out lies and distortions purely to whip up the hatred between the two sides.
Okay, briefly, I'm going to run out of time. I'm going to ask Muath one question. But Dr. Yvonne, when you have the BBC, for example, bringing both sides on its own airwaves, for example, speaking to voices from Israel and speaking to the voices equally from Gaza, is that a fair kind of journalism? Can we categorize it as unbiased or objective?
Well, no, again, we know all about the girl, the naked body that we saw of the girl who'd been killed. We know all about her personal life, what sort of music she liked. We have this really human picture, and it is a tragedy, but we're not getting that about the Palestinian teenagers who've died. We don't know anything about them. They're just bodies. We see mothers screaming and shouting and looking aggressive, and we're not getting the human interest picture that we're getting from the other side. You know, if you're uncertain about who you should stand with and against, the late Desmond Tutu had it right when he said, if you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. If an elephant has its foot on the tail of a mouse and you say that you are neutral, the mouse will not appreciate your neutrality. Perhaps the BBC ought to think about that before pumping out, you know, oh, we're neutral.
Okay, okay, Muath. When you hear words like this, for example, that the Western media does not give you enough coverage or does not give you a fair kind of coverage of the situation, of your own situation, and on the other hand, you have Al Jazeera, for example, focusing heavily on the atrocities that the Israelis are committing on your own land against your own people. Do you feel a sense of relief that you have one media organization that covers your own story, your own situation from your own lenses and angles, from your own point of view?
Actually, when I read the news, I feel irony, I feel sarcasm when in the same headline, CNN, for example, or Fox News, they mention number of Palestinians died while the Israelis killed. So you see the hypocrisy. They've both been in the same headline, but they've been treated differently. When you see the reporting of the Ukraine describing or telling the horrific stories of them resisting and funding, arming them, and praising the resistance. On the other hand, when you see Palestinians resisting, you see the ugly face of the colonialism. You see the ugly face of the occupation and those who support it. Now US is clearly saying it. This is not Israel war only, it's our war. So this is the head of the democracy on the world. They are calling for peace while sending their military ships. This is insane. This is like, what should I understand from this? How should I treat to this? Are you expecting me to die like and just accept it? Or the any human, if you ask him, he will choose to die in dignity while standing, while fighting. We know that our resistance is not even compared to what Israel has or what Israel is getting supported by. But this is the nature of the human being we are talking about here.
I really
the
understand.
human being will not be accepting that being oppressed. He will resist, and this is a moral message, a noble resistance,
Mm.
we should praise it as we praised other resistance.
Yeah.
So it's not fair when it comes to the Palestinians. We change the whole narrative.
Mm.
It's not fair anymore. And the world in this century has 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 to reject this and not accept it anymore.
Muath, I understand that the West is not by your side, and you have totally acknowledged that. You have already mentioned it. I was on Twitter and I saw one tweet by a Chinese guy called Cheng Weihua. He said Joe Biden didn't mention the deaths of Palestinian civilians even once in his 15-minute speech, the speech that he delivered yesterday. Of course, this is a very good case for you to make. But one thing that I want to ask both of you, okay, you want to come in, you want to talk about Biden's speech?
Yeah,
Yes.
he will never mention them because simply he doesn't care about them.
Okay, but one thing that I
It's
want
it's
you
it's
to,
it's frank and simple.
yeah,
Why people cannot see it this way? Those who have been like lecturing the whole world about democracy, about the nobility, about the morality, now they are proud of killing the innocents. Now they are funding the genocides of my people.
okay.
Like
This is very, very, very bad and ironic. But one irony I want to put to you, both of you, is that, Yvonne, let me briefly start with you, is that a lot of people here in Nigeria think that the Arab world, the Gulf nations, probably might have abandoned the Palestinians, leaving them, well, by themselves or to themselves, not providing a lot of or much needed support to them. As a Middle East affairs analyst, do you believe, is it true that the Arab world, most of them, the Gulf countries, the Sunni majority countries, have abandoned the Palestinians, and maybe that is why the Iran has been exercising its own influence and supporting the Hamas fighters? Yvonne.
Well, the geopolitics of this are indeed very complex. And I think the one to watch at the moment is the Saudi Arabian Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, a brute of a man responsible for the murder of the journalist Jamal Khashoggi. He is undergoing a rehabilitation of his image at the moment, and he is standing very firmly with the Palestinians. He was on the phone to Mahmoud Abbas and said, "You can count on me." He's saying all the right things at the moment. And this is fascinating because he has now broken off normalization with Israel. And that's where Saudi was moving towards until this happened. And this will finish off Netanyahu. Netanyahu has killed the goose that laid the golden egg by his treatment of the Palestinians. The goose being Mohammed bin Salman, who has now broken off all ties with Israel. And this will really backfire with Netanyahu because Saudi was the one country that could handle and deliver the problem that Israel had with Iran.
Okay.
Now, Iran is saying we've got absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with this Hamas attack.
Okay.
But I find it interesting that Hezbollah in Lebanon is standing by, pretty quiet at the moment, but they have said, if you need us, we will come. So this is very interesting. Of course, Joe Biden's response to all of this is to send out a naval task force. You know, you cannot deliver peace through the barrel of a gun. And when will the Americans learn this lesson? They got spanked in Afghanistan, totally humiliated. They're pushing Europe into a war with Russia and using Ukraine as a proxy. The Americans need to understand that you cannot deliver peace through weapons.
Speaking of peace delivery, Muath, we have to let you go, but finally, your final words before we let you go, and then pick up with Yvonne. Muath, what is your hope as a Palestinian, and what is the hope of the whole Palestinians right now? I'm sure it's a ceasefire, but how can it be achieved?
The hope is not a ceasefire. The
What is
hope
it?
is to get my homeland back, to restore my occupied lands. I'm originally not from Gaza. I'm originally from Ashkelon, which is called Al Jora village. So my hope is the same hope of my grandfather and grandmother, to go back, to have the ability to return back to their lands where they were expelled in 1948. This is the hope. We are not fighting for ceasefire. We are not like resisting for just some electricity or just food or these mere things to ask for. We are fighting for dignity. We are fighting for restoring our occupied lands. This what the whole world must know. This is not a fight for mere objectives. We have detainees in the Israeli jails dying slowly of cancer, and the Israeli extremist far-right government is preventing them from medication, is preventing them from visits from their families. So we are not fighting for breaking a siege or something less than liberating Palestine. And this has been said clearly by the resistance and by the whole Palestinian people now under the rebels or under the airstrikes. So this is the hope of every Palestinian, I assure you. It's not to stop the war, but it is also one of the objections to stop the war. But this is the minor objective of everyone. We don't want to live in war, of course.
Yeah.
We want to live like anyone else in the world, peacefully and comfortably in our lands.
Yeah.
But when you push someone to the corner, humiliate his holy sites, like kidnap and imprison his people, kill in daily basis, kill his people, what are you expecting him to do? For the Palestinians, the answer is clear: to resist. To resist till we get our lands back.
Okay. This is very, very deeply saddening and emotional on this terrible day and difficult day. Thank you very much, Muath Umar, for being on the show. And I hope we will join you again in the next couple of days to continue, because there are so many questions I have stuck here to ask you, but your time is not by your side and you have another meeting. Please stay safe, and I hope your family members will be safe as well. I will join with you very soon to continue whenever you are free. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, and thanks for Dr.
Dr. Yvonne.
I didn't get the name.
Dr. Yvonne Ridley.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure meeting you and talking with you and sharing this platform with you.
It was a pleasure listening to the brother, and well, what can we say? You know, the Palestinians have every right in international law to resist a brutal occupation, and they've been resisting for 75 years. And what we are seeing unfold now is because of the international community. Britain, America, Europe, lighting up their buildings with the Israeli flag. What do they think that the Palestinians are thinking about this? the mothers and fathers in Gaza who have lost their children, who will never experience the joy of watching them grow up because they've been killed under a bombardment, which is a war crime. And Israel is committing war crimes every time it drops a bomb in a civilian area. That is a war crime. It is collective punishment, which is illegal under international law.
Okay. Yes, of course. So yeah, we will definitely find another day to pair you together with Muath in order to carry on. But Muath, we
My
have to let
pleasure.
you. Yeah, we have to let you go and attend to the other
Yeah.
meeting.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. You're
Thank you
joining
so
us.
much.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
you're joining
Muath.
us from Malaysia, and right now the time is 11:30 in Malaysia. In London,
Yeah.
in London it is 4:30. In Nigeria, it's also 4:30. So stay safe. All the best, Omar, and we're carrying on with Yvonne. Dr. Yvonne, just like 5 minutes, we just like have 5 minutes to go, and let me ask you just a few more political questions. This the new wave of attack that has happened, or that happened last Saturday, came and has been described as unprecedented, unexpected, but some people believe that the government of Benjamin Netanyahu was so busy dealing with its own internal political crisis, that is why they didn't see the attack coming. Is it also a point to look at?
It certainly is, and it will cost Benjamin Netanyahu his prime ministership. That is the one certainty that the Western media haven't picked up upon this yet. Once Netanyahu goes into the court of public opinion with the Israeli people, they will blame him for this catastrophic intelligence failure. And it was unprecedented. Mossad has the reputation of being the finest intelligence agency in the world. That evaporated overnight when we saw this militarily stunning attack by Hamas on the fourth most powerful army in the world. Even today, there are Hamas fighters still in Israel fighting back. And I think that some of the biggest military colleges and universities in the world will analyze this attack, this audacious attack. And, one of the first things in Sun Tzu's Art of War book is surprising the enemy. And my goodness, Hamas certainly did that. And it surprised a lot of people in the Middle East as well, because they thought that Hamas had been infiltrated by double agents, by Palestinians who were prepared to betray information to the Zionists. And obviously, this catastrophic intelligence failure, and it caught out the Americans as well, who listen into everyone's conversations, and I'm sure have a front row in your podcast. It was like the fall of the Berlin Wall. The CIA missed that one happening as well.
Okay, one thing that really has become so complicated in the minds of many people is the fact that how could an attack of such magnitude and scale happen without prior notice, prior intelligence reports, without red flags, red alerts, and so on and so forth? Nobody saw it coming. Might it have happened probably with some inside help in Israel?
Well, the trouble is the Israelis have demonized Hamas and the Palestinians living in Gaza so much, calling them animals, calling them all sorts of names that have just served to dehumanize them. When in fact, if you actually look at the makeup of the government in Gaza, there are more PhDs in the Hamas government than in any other government in the world today. Now but if you are going to deride these people and call them animals and debase them and humiliate them constantly, then people are amazed. But what you've got in Gaza is one of the most highly educated, literate populations in the world today. The children are brought up to treat their education as resistance. And that is why they brave bombs and bullets to go to school every day. They are on a par with the Arab kids in Qatar, the richest country in the Arab world per head of population. And, you know, these are very bright, intelligent kids who you look at their backgrounds, and it's not surprising, really, that they have come up with this astonishing attack on Israel. And I'm not praising Hamas, but militarily, this will be talked about and analysed in military colleges around the world because it was spectacular.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, then that's another thing that Sun Tzu says as well, is that you should never underestimate the enemy.
Definitely.
And because they've dehumanized and ridiculed and treated the Palestinians in Gaza, well, their religious leaders are calling the people animals.
So speaking on the attack being so spectacular and will be talked about in military colleges and institutions, what do you think about the hostage situation? There are many Israelis now taken, being kidnapped or under the captivity or in captivity of the Hamas fighters, militants.
And you know, Umar, from my own experience as a hostage, my heart goes out to every one of them and their families.
Definitely.
Because it is a terrifying situation. The hostages will not know if they're going to survive. Their families will not know if they're going to see their loved ones again. It's an impossible situation. How long will it go on for? Well, they held on to the Israeli soldier for 6 years as a hostage before they exchanged him. So I think that Qatar is leading the negotiations on this. And again, it's a tiny little state, but it punches well above its weight. And it knows how to speak the language that both sides will understand. So
it's
that
good
they will be doing their best to resolve the situation as well.
Yeah, it is good at negotiation. Finally, before we go, what should the Netanyahu government be focused on? Securing the captives, the kidnapped victims, or continuing bombardment of the Gaza Strip? Which one is better?
They should be focusing on sitting down and talking to Hamas. Only by doing that will they bring about peace. Bombs and bullets don't bring about peace. They kill people. They kill the children. The bombs that they've dropped in Gaza have killed some of their own people, the hostages. And as someone who was bombed by Britain and America 22 years ago, I can tell you that is a terrifying experience. And all those memories have come flooding back with this situation in Gaza. It's been very triggering, and talk. That's all you can do. Talk to your enemy. Be the bigger person in all of this. And for God's sake, to the international community, wake up and start talking peace.
All right, Dr. Yvonne Ridley, thank you enormously for speaking to me on this show. And we have to also thank Dr. KHINVRAJ for being on the show for the first part of the program, even though he had to leave because of some unavoidable issues. And then Muath Omar, also a Middle East, the Palestinian research fellow in Malaysia. We have to also thank him. He had to also leave after giving us his own analysis. It's only Dr. Yvonne Ridley that remains from the beginning up to the end of the program. Thank you very much, Ma, for always honoring my invitation and speaking on my channel. It's very motivating.
Well, thank you for being brave enough to hold a podcast on this subject, because if people don't like the outcome, they'll certainly let you know.
Definitely. Thank you very much indeed. On behalf of everyone that has contributed to the production of the show, my name is Umar Isa Dandago, and this is the first episode that we have produced talking about this issue. Many more episodes will emerge as the story unfolds. It's a developing story, and we have recorded this on Wednesday, the 11th of October, and inshallah many more episodes will come out, and we hope peace will reign and things will go back to normal. Thank you very much once again.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Okay, bye.